So I'm the founder of GrowthMentor. Before that, I was the VP of Growth at EuroVPS, which is a managed hosting provider.
Mm.
And before that, I was, nothing else. I just graduated university with a finance degree. So first job out of college, joined my brother's startup as the first non-engineer hire,
Oh,
and became a self-taught marketer and kind of drove growth there for a decade, and founded GrowthMentor as a result of own personal sort of pain point I
mm.
had in a growth role in tech. Sometimes you can get a little bit lonely. You just want to bounce ideas with somebody who gets it, who's doing the same kind of stuff as you. And if you don't live in SF or London or one of these fancy startup hubs, it's sometimes hard to find people locally, right? So where do you go online? Twitter, LinkedIn. I mean, I was not really into social media back then, so yeah, therein was my problem.
Gotcha, gotcha. So you kind of answered my second question already, like how you came up with this idea. And I can totally relate to that. It's pretty hard to find, like-minded people that would like to share their experience. So I've been using GrowthMentor both as a mentee and as a mentor. And it's been really, really cool. Then, meeting up with the people I met through there on conferences and kind of expanding my network. So brilliant idea, but also a pretty challenging one. Honestly, I have a personal story with trying to build a marketplace. So kind of my first failed, unfortunately, startup was a platform basically for expats in China, right? Like before the pandemic, there were around 1 million expats living in China and struggling with not being able to use local facilities without speaking Mandarin. So me and my business partner, my co-founder, we basically created a platform connecting local businesses with the expats living in China. But the problem was like getting, enough of these local businesses to cooperate and, use the platform when there weren't any, expats on it yet was challenging. And the expats didn't want to use it if they opened the map and didn't see anything. So how did you experience a similar problem, the eponymous cold start problem in GrowthMentor?
Um, to be honest with you, we didn't really experience it that vividly like you did. Just on account, I would imagine, of it being a very niche platform. And when we started, we were hyper focused on growth marketing, in particular, like solo growth marketers, and the pain point is quite pronounced. And I think that because of that hyper specificity, like we were able to create that sort of like atomic network that's required to get the flywheel, the network effects started quite easily. And yeah, I mean, there's always that sort of supply versus demand issue with marketplaces. And for us, we started with the supply side. I think most marketplaces choose to tackle that first because there's literally no way you're going to get demand if there's no supply. I mean, sometimes I think it's happened, but for the supply side for us, like we just reached out cold to people that we thought would be a good fit based on some cues. So for example, one of the most successful campaigns that we did to get the initial cohort is we reached out to people, that founders that contributed to Indie Hackers write-ups. Basically, Indie Hackers had this series where you could show write your growth story and write your story, how you did it, right? How you scaled up, mostly bootstrapped. So we figured, what, if these people are interested in sharing their story, they have that sort of mentality of giving back and sharing transparency. So that was how we got some of our first mentors. And then at that point on, it just became sort of a inbounds situation, because people would share it on LinkedIn that, oh, I'm a mentor on this platform, because it was hyper focused for growth, which at that point there was nothing really like that. I mean, it wasn't just a mentor. If we tried to start like a business mentorship platform, probably would have been a lot more difficult. But because it had that sort of niche orientation, I think that it was slightly easier for us. But yeah, I mean, that's one one sort of takeaway, actionable, just go super duper niche to the point where you feel like your market is too small. Like if it doesn't feel like this is too small, then probably you're too wide. I mean, eBay was just collectibles in the beginning, right? Sometimes people forget.
So was this connection also how you got your first, say 100, mentors, mentees to sign up, or like how did you first, build the network?
The initial one was just doing the hustle stuff, right? Like the LinkedIn outreach messages, and, the scrapings and all that stuff. I mean, it was back in the day when Phantom Buster was like, there was no limits. Like you could really do like proper growth hacking. I hate that word, but anyway. So yeah, I mean, that's how we got sort of awareness. And because it was exclusive, like no one could just push a button and become a mentor. Like people wanted it more. So that's another like tip, I guess. Just make it curated and focus on quality over quantity. A good analogy that I think it's good, but an analogy that I like to make about marketplaces is to kind of view it like a swimming pool, right? So if you don't take care of the health metrics of your swimming pool, the chlorine is down, there's no balance, you don't put the right minerals inside, like it's gonna turn green and no one's gonna want to go inside of it. You have to skim the top from the leaves and all that stuff, right? So this curation, I think, really helps with that. I mean, I'd much rather get in a small swimming pool that's crystal clear and blue than some huge one that's, has body parts inside of it,
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, what you generally did and what you're mentioning here is like the classic mistake that startup founders make, right? They kind of go broad instead of niching down and starting from building something really great for a small number of people and then expanding to a wider audience. And on the flip side, what was more challenging, actually, getting the mentors to use the platform or getting the mentees to tap into it?
uh, like the mentees, I would say, because there's money involved, right? You have to pay a membership fee
Right.
to join, and generally people don't like to pay for things. But yeah, I mean the mentor bit, that's we get around 200-300 applications every single month to join as mentors, and we don't do any activities to proactively try and get mentors to apply, right? So it's just referral loop from
That's
LinkedIn.
great.
I mean, I think you might have, I don't know if you have I'm a mentor on GrowthMentor on your LinkedIn, on experiences like that. When that started happening by accident. Danny Hart started that in the very beginning. She put, I'm a growth mentor, and then that spread to all of her LinkedIn connections that she has a new job role, and everyone's like, oh, what's this, right?
That's GrowthMentor, yeah.
Yeah, so like
Cool.
that was really big, and it still is our number one. Every time I jump on a mentor interview call, always that's the first thing I ask. So like, hey, icebreaker question, like, so how'd you find out about us? And it's either referral, another mentor told me, or I saw it on LinkedIn and I was curious and I clicked in, or like I literally just Googled it, like startup mentors. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool growth hack. It kind of is quite similar to these, famous growth hacks like what PayPal did or what, Hotmail did. Um, Yeah, but you generally use quite a lot of these little gamification hacks inside Growth Mentor. For instance, like when somebody is a mentor, you use these ranks like Magnum or Balthazar, depending on how many meetings they have had to incentivize them to provide more mentorship. Like, how did you come up with this idea? What other, gamification tactics have you found were effective?
Yeah. So whenever, like for us, we realized early on that reviews were that was like the dopamine thing for the supply side, for the mentors. Whenever a mentor got a review,
Yeah.
it feels really good to get a good review. I mean, some of them are really emotional and very verbose in their descriptions of what the call was about. So like that's what mentors were doing it for. In fact, I mean, most of the mentors are offering their time for free on GrowthMentor, like, which is pretty, like that's the most shocking thing about GrowthMentor, really. It's like they're doing it for, like, we don't force them. It's just up till 3 reviews. You have to be free, but then after that, like if you want to charge, you can, no hard feelings. But most of them do it because they like doing the calls, and that's part of the whole onboarding process as well. It's making sure that the mentors are for the right motivation. So back to like the gamification elements, I mean, that was like the magic moment of the mentor experience when you get the reviews. So like we knew that we wanted to have some sort of a ranking system, but we weren't sure what to call them and so on. There's so many of these platforms that do gamification, and they have bronze, silver, gold, platinum, or some variation, diamond as well. But I didn't really like that because then it kind of denotes that like one is subpar to the other, right? Like, well, one's not as good as diamond or whatever. But the cool thing with like the wine sizes, and by the way, like it's Magnum 10 reviews, Balthazar is 25 reviews, you get to that level, and Nebuchadnezzar is 50, and Midas is 100 reviews. All names of different sizes of bottles of wine, right? So a Nebuchadnezzar, like 20 liters.
I didn't even know that. You must be a wine buff.
Yeah, and I had that idea. I was visiting a winery in Greece, and I was inside where they had all the wine, and there was these huge bottles, and then there was this sizing chart on the back, and it said the names of them, and I was like, these are like the coolest names ever, like a Nebuchadnezzar. I want a Nebuchadnezzar. Like I want the bottle just to like, and I love this the symbology of it. Like no matter what rank you are, you're still a growth mentor, right? Like the wine inside, whether you have it in a small vessel or a really big vessel, like it's still the same, right, quality. So it doesn't mean that you're inferior to another rank. If you have, it just means that you've just done more calls, which is
that's a great story. Yeah, you should definitely talk more about it. It's super interesting, and this analogy is also really good. So it's not qualitative, like giving you a different sort of precious metal label, right, as people mostly do. Yeah, and they sound a bit magical, in fact, right? Like almost like you're some kind of a Lord of the Rings character.
Bizarre, Nebuchadnezzar, like, and always, I still don't know how to spell Nebuchadnezzar. Nobody does. It's like, so there's this mystique about it. And then what we do, it's like to make it fun, is like we'll send when you hit Nebuchadnezzar, we'll send a swag pack with like a hoodie, Nebuchadnezzar, a hashtag in the front, the logo in the back. And at Midas, by the way, is 100 liters. So it's 100 reviews. When you get to 100 reviews, you get Midas level, and then we'll actually buy a trip to a flight to Greece and 3 nights vacation in any like island you want in Greece. So there's been 14 mentors that have hit that thus far. So
wow,
that's as well, because like they come over and we hang out and stuff. So
that's amazing. Any other gamification tactics that you've used in GrowthMentor that you really moved the needle? Like, do you have any particular numbers or results that you could share to kind of motivate the audience?
I don't have really any numbers for that gamification. I just kind of started it, and like I hear from people though that like they tell me like I'm really gunning it because I want to get to 100 reviews to beat that person's record. Because most of the mentors are very like A-type personalities. They're competitive. You're in growth generally. You're data-driven. You want the numbers. So like it brings out the competitive nature in people, which is pretty cool. But in terms of other gamification things that we've done, we haven't really done anything else except for that. We are planning on doing that, like building a gamification element with the mentees this summer. So actually, next week we have a design sprint. Alec, our designer, is going to fly from Bulgaria. We're going to rent an Airbnb and just spend a whole week and just sit and brainstorm like how can we build in gamification to the community elements of GrowthMentor, because ultimately one of our long-term visions is basically unlocking like the latent demands of the mentees to want to also help, right? Because imagine like somebody helps you, right? When someone helps you, like, because for free, like you feel almost like you're stealing if you don't somehow pay back, right? And leaving a review, it's like, okay, great, but like, what else can I do? So like we want to build this culture where it's like, okay, you're being helped top down from the mentors, now you pay it forward and help somebody else in the community as well, right? So like almost like how, Uber, like how they have like Uber X, where like anybody can be a driver, like that kind of, we want to make it so anybody can be a mentor on Growth Mentor as well and help other people out in the community. So I think that's going to open up a lot of doors for like badges and streaks and all this fun stuff. Google reviews actually is my inspiration. I'm kind of looking at them as the as a model to follow, because what they've done is they've broken down the activity drivers that they deem to be beneficial for the community. For example, a comment, writing a review, upvoting somebody else's, if somebody upvotes their comment, and they put points on each one of them. And those points add up and they equate to different ranks and levels. And I think that's a brilliant sort of way to think about it.
Yeah, and there's also so much kind of brand reputation in Google and becoming, like the reviewer there. So that also kind of adds you, like, I guess, this feeling of personal satisfaction. Likewise with GrowthMentor and the reviews, for instance, that the growth mentors get. Like, this is something that I'm always looking forward to, like hearing that. So yeah, this session helped someone. So really cool. Now, if you could share some exciting, you sort of started talking about like improving the designs and building in more of these like cool gamification elements. But any other cool future plans for Growth Mentor? Any exciting new features, or maybe like whole new ideas?
We're considering, we have like 3 like big things that we're thinking about, but we're not sure which ones to do, if any at all. Actually, we're gonna first kind of lay out, like do the gamification, build on the community, like, but just for some things that for sure we're gonna do is we're gonna add more social networking elements within Growth Mentor. So the concept of a connection request is gonna come. Probably we're gonna deploy that end of next week. So mentees all have their own mentee profile pages, and you can now, we've actually updated this week, a couple of days ago, the whole like front end of the community browse. So you can browse mentees based on their networking objectives. So for example, like co-marketing opportunities, exchange backlinks, find a co-founder, find a podcast collaborator, reach out to them. If someone looks interesting to you and you want to like do something and network, push the button, request connection, and then it says, hey, what networking objective do you want to collaborate on? You choose which one, you write a message, and then they can either accept or decline. Very similar way like LinkedIn, right? So that's something that we're launching really soon. And then beyond that, we're also considering creating a freelancer network. We've already kind of planted the seeds with that, with like this no-code implementation of it called Growth Expert. So there's a site, growthexpert.io, and it has a type form, free to submit. Say, hey, I'm looking for a growth freelancer to help with insert here, whatever topic. And then the qualified leads get piped into an Airtable, which is accessible only to the mentors with Magnum rank and above. And then if they want to apply to any of them, they can. We have some zaps in the back, and it kind of connects, CCs the lead and the mentor, and then if they want to work together, they just go off platform, right? So it's kind of like our way of saying thanks for being awesome and being a mentor on Growth Mentor. Here's some free leads, like if you want to like do stuff, right? So we're thinking about taking that from like this no-code implementation, actually building it like a proper platform out of that. So yeah, I would say those are the core sort of things that have a high likelihood of sometime happening.
I really like how even at this stage you're still MVPing new features and there's, like crude no code way. I just talked to a friend yesterday and he said he was hired as a fractional CMO at a startup. They've got like 2 million in, pre-seed funding, and essentially it was all, he couldn't stay there because the founder and CEO was constantly coming up with new features and delaying the proper launch forever. And it was like, if only we add this more feature, we will like take over the world, and people will come if we'll build it. So every week he was coming up with something new, and then the development team, they already spent like €1.5 million and like just building things and never really launching them into the world. So I love your approach. Have you tested other features like that in, like this sort of
Uh,
no code way?
we tested growth audit, and that
Uh-huh.
failed. There's a similar sort of concept where you crowdsource mentors to audit a part like a website or a growth model or whatever, and that kind of crumbled up. But you know what I realized, like from test, and this one here is probably gonna. There's a high likelihood that it will probably not work. Just maybe I'll be wrong and it'll be awesome, but like my gut feeling is that it won't, is because there's a misalignment, I think, with the intentions. Right? A lot of the mentors are full timers, like they're really
Mm-hmm.
busy, they're doing their thing, right? They're not on GrowthMentor to like get leads and stuff. There is a certain percentage for sure, which is like open for fractional jobs or maybe is in between. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it might require to attract a like an adjacent network that's not mentors, right? That but because we have that ecosystem around growth, we have that sort of competitive advantage to be able to rank for like a lot of keywords growth related, and we have the trust as well of like we're pretty good at vetting. So I think we do have the ingredients for it, but I'm not sure whether like it's even something that we really
Mm.
want to do because we like to do work that we enjoy and give us satisfaction as well. It's not just about the money.
Yeah, yeah, that's the best approach, right?
Yeah,
If you don't have like presumably you don't have like a big VC sitting on your back, like forcing you
yeah.
to.
At a VC, it'd be a different story, right? But like we're fully
Yeah.
bootstrapped and intend to stay that way forever. So yeah, it's just like have do stuff that you like.
Cool. Yeah. Then you can do all the experiments in the world and like do what is the most fun, right? Rather than
Yeah.
trying to like squeeze every penny out of every mentor and opportunity. Brilliant. Yeah, I think because you didn't have the problem that I kind of wanted to discuss in the title of this webinar, I think I've ran through my questions here. So if anyone wants to connect with Foti from the audience here or people watching us on YouTube later, you can, I guess the best way to reach you is
LinkedIn, you can reach
LinkedIn.
me. You can email me at foti@growthmentor.com or call me on GrowthMentor.
And of course, yeah, go to GrowthMentor. You'll find a lot of brilliant experts there. Like I've used it several times, and yeah, it's a really, really cool idea. So thanks, Foti, for coming up with this and joining us today. And I'm sure we'll be in touch soon as well.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye bye.